Hans Stegeman, who's been working as chief economist for Triodos, one of the first banks that has looked at value-based investment from the very beginning. Hans, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And I was looking at those signs, and there's a lot of hope in it. Hope is not optimism. Hope is hoping that the world can be better. And I was reading a story of a philosopher, and he said, hope is irrational. It's like getting married and saying that you will forever stay with your partner. Only 6% of all marriages are ending up in that way. So also hope is by definition irrational. We know what we need to do. We know it for a long time. We know it for 50 years. But we don't know how to get there. This is what we know, right? So we see all the problems, we see a polycrisis, and we only look at the symptoms, but never on the underlying root causes, so the flawed financial economic thinking. And if we think really in systems, it's relatively easy to understand what is wrong with the world. So we have vectors of energy, matter, information, biota going through the economy. To take the example of information, information is great. Information brings innovations, brings progress, but also brings a lot of problems, bubbles, false information, all that kind of stuff, which does something with the polycrisis we have. And you see it in all those factors. You see energy replaces labor, but also brings energy shortages, energy crises, disputes, all kinds of problems. And this is, of course, a global system in polycrisis which has multiple causes, which is non-linear, which is path-dependent, which has boundaries that we know but not exactly know, because we know the planetary boundaries, but we don't know exactly where they are. And we see a lot of black swan outcomes where we are worrying a lot about. And of course, we know the system of the economy, this is also old news. If you look at all the literature, we know that the economic system is embedded in social system, is embedded in the ecosystem, and never the other way around. But still, we always do it like this. And this is the story that is so framed in our head that even the best models and the best science cannot help us. It is not a matter of more science and more knowledge. It's a matter of our mental wiring, of a better understanding that we should do things differently. Because this is also in the SDGs, this is also the donut of Kate Raworth, it's all the same. And we know it for a long time. And we also know that well-being stagnates. So you see it in the Sustainable Development Goals Index globally, it stagnates. You see it also in the Human Development Index, it almost does not grow anymore. So, and these are broader indices of well-being. And if you have a system that is told us that it should deliver progress, and it is not delivering globally, we have a problem. And many people see those problems. It's also what Paul Polman told this morning. It's also what others say. People know that we have a problem globally. So just a few parts of the evidence. People know that we should do more about climate. People should know that we should do more about environmental problems. People worry about inequality. So it's not that people don't care. So there's something else is wrong. And if we look to Europe, so now I'm going a little bit into Europe, what is the answer to the crisis if you see in the reports of the European Union? The answer to the challenges we give is competitiveness. Yes, we have a problem, so we need more productivity growth and less regulation. If we say, yes, we have a problem with energy, so what do? More renewables, we need more, and not thinking about how we can change the system. If we talk about finance, that's where I work, of course, we need more capital is the idea. We need to mobilize capital to have more and more finance. Security, more defense spending. So the answer to the problem where we have a system that's already too much is always more. And this is a hopeless agenda. This is a hopeless agenda that will not make Europe grow again, but also only a failed copy of the US. And I think that's something we should remember, and if we think about what we can do and how we can change, this is the moment for big ideas. This is the moment for radical change. So, how does that work, radical change? It's very simple. We have the story of social tipping points. Social tipping points is the idea that if we have 20 to 25% of a population thinking in a new way, having new norms, having new behavior, you can change the society. We have seen it in history, this can work. So this is not that difficult to find 25% of the people who already 80% think it should be different. Why not 20% behave differently? It's not so difficult. But then, and that's also what we tend to forget, so you have tipping pointology, so this is, so how do we change? We have new ideas popping up, actions for change. People in the middle think, yeah, that's a good idea, so we are in favor of change. 20, 25%, what I just told. But we also have another feedback loop. If this goes too fast, then people are going to resist. Vested interest, do the other way around, actions against change. People in the middle think, yeah, maybe it's not the best idea, I'm worried. And then you get more people against that change. And this is where we are. So what should you do then if you are here? Then you should promote every day again with your business, with your family, with everything you do, that we need radical change. That we should do more, not for the sake of doing more and do it differently, but because that's what we need to do. I have 7 transformations. The first one is, and I think that's the important one, so I take 1 minute for this one, strive for balance. Strive for balance is getting rid of our growth addiction, and our growth addiction comes from our profit growth imperative. We're addicted to profits. We need profits, because that's what we do. And if we have a big profit incentive, that's always on a macro level an incentive for a lot of growth. I'm not saying we don't need any profit, but we need sufficient profit, not maximum profit. That's why we need balance. In the monetary system, we have a monetary growth imperative. Money is only created if a bank gets a return. A private bank creates money, and it only creates money if it gets a return on it. And a return, the highest return is also the biggest profit, is also a growth imperative. And the third one, which is a really difficult one, that's the social growth imperative. Governments need growth to pay social security, to pay for education, but that's the way we have created our system. Strive for balance means we can do it in a different way, really. Rethink ownership, which is a really fundamental one, which is linked to the first one. How can we have other ownership ideas, which are already out there? We have a lot of cooperatives, we have a lot of... B Corps are not necessarily different ownership structure, but we have a lot of different ownership structures. We need to prioritize needs, which is in a different agenda than maximizing growth or saying we have social dependencies, we need growth to have social needs. No, we can do it arranged in a different way. We can do a different agenda. We need to cooperate. We forget it. We forget it. Also in the latest World Happiness Report was people are more happy if they cooperate, if they do things for one another. That's the power of humanity, to cooperate, to really do something for another person. I want to share some time about moralized finance. I think that's very important. We always hear the story, we have a finance gap, or it's impossible to finance something. No, it's always a moral choice, and that choice is embedded in the financial structures we have. We can, if we want to, use money for anything we want. The moral choice is, how much return do we want to make? Do we prioritize return before impact? Do we make money, or do we only want to make money with creating real stuff in the economy, with financing real change? So the moral aspect of money is often completely forgotten. Money is nothing else than a social relationship, or it should be. And I think people forget that. Last slide, because I want to take some time for this last slide. This was all on a macroeconomic level. I'm an economist, macroeconomist, so that's where I belong. But the other element of it is also what it means for business and what it means for finance and business. And what I see, if I look at all the discussions of what sustainability and business should be, we are only busy with the top here, with transparency, with reporting, with complying, which is completely irrelevant most of the times, because the illusion that we have is if we are transparent, people will act upon that transparency. But in reality, most of them don't do it. So if you want to talk about radical transformation and business, you really have to start at the foundation, which is quite difficult, I know it. I see some people, okay. The relationship with profit is crucial, on the micro level and on the macro level. If you don't want to discuss your relationship with profit, then you can do everything right, you can have a nice purpose, you can be very transparent, you can think about your governance, but then still probably in some way you're extractive as a business. Because the only way you can make useful profit, which is quite a difficult concept, useful profit should be producing value added for society in such a way that people are willing to pay something for it where you can make a profit out of. Which is something different than say, this is the willingness to pay, and this is my cost, and this is how I make a profit. No, it's much more than that. So it always starts with the relationship with profit. Then it starts with your incorporation structure. How are you organized? Then your purpose. And I think quite often people start with a purpose and forget the rest. Purpose should follow after the rest. If you only work on your purpose but not on your relationship with profit and your incorporation structure, I think, okay, there are cases that it can help. So it's not always black and white, it's often gray, but in a presentation it helps to bring it black and white. So yes, it's black and white. If you only do your purpose, it's not enough. Then your governance structure, so the governance structure is different than your incorporation structure. Your governance structure is, do you have all your stakeholders? Do you have a place for nature? That kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm a little bit negative about it, because if you only do that, it's shallow. And transparency, yes, a great impact report, great, but what are you actually doing with your impact that you report? Are you managing your impact or only reporting on it? That kind of questions. If you have a business and you work on this and going to the macro level again, this is the only way that you can do it. Hopefully this helps to bring the bigger picture back also to your business and back again to that bigger picture. Thank you very much.